Hey everyone, thanks for being here today. We're going to get started here in just a second. We got a bunch of people still joining the webinar. Thanks for tuning in with us. We are also live on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. So thanks everyone for watching. I'd love as people are joining, please jump into the chat. Love to hear where everyone's from. Jump in, please. I'd love to hear what part of the country, or if you're not in the United States, what part of the world you're in. And if everyone can hear me audio, that'd be great as well, but please jump into the chat. Love to hear where everyone's at and tuning in from. Awesome, great. It looks like we got Virginia Beach, we got Indiana, Michigan. Awesome, thanks everyone for being here. Colorado, Chicago, Houston, awesome. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, great, fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Portland, Oregon, awesome. Got another local, I'm from Portland as well. Salt Lake City, Indiana, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being here. We're going to jump right in. We got a packed agenda today. We're basically going to be going through a comparison of what's considered LPM, law practice management software, or law firm practice management software. And so we work with a lot of law firms, and a brief kind of overview about us and what we do. We're an IT provider. We work with law firms and other organizations around the country, helping them manage their IT, helping them focus on revenue generating activities, and we handle their IT. I'm director of marketing, been with the company for about 5 years. We actually have a whole archive of other webinars that if you're interested in learning about other technology topics, head over to our website, nwtex.com/webinars. You can check out a bunch of other awesome resources we have on cybersecurity, compliance, Microsoft 365, all sorts of kind of relevant small business technology topics that you can learn more about, and how you can utilize some of those tools and features in your organization. Kind of give you a brief rundown of the agenda. First, we're going to jump into kind of why are law firms and organizations using practice management tools? What are the benefits? What are the things you should be looking for as an outcome of the tools? We're going to be reviewing kind of key features to look for as you're reviewing different practice management tools and offerings. We're going to do a comparison of kind of the top 5, really a comparison of all the different practice management softwares out there, and then highlighting a few of our favorites and a few of the ones that we've seen that have worked well. So excited to go through those and take a deep dive into some of those tools out there. We'll also be talking about cloud versus on-premise. As you look at providers, some of the providers out there are exclusively cloud-based. Some of them require some sort of desktop or server to operate them. Those are very different tools, have a lot of different pros and cons, and we're going to be talking through ultimately what if you're like dead set on using this one tool that you have to have on a desktop or a server. Or if there's some requirement, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. We do have clients that have needs to have on-premise software. But we're going to talk through what you should look for as far as what to avoid, and some of the pros and cons there as well. We're going to be going through how to use on-premise software in the cloud. A little big of a tongue twister of a concept there, but we'll go into it in a little bit. We're going to do what are some options for what you can do next. In regards to your search for practice management software, or how to benchmark what you currently have in place to see if you have the best tools in place. We'll do a brief Q&A at the end. We've probably had a couple hundred questions submitted in advance that we've reviewed for this webinar, that we've been able to structure it to hopefully everyone that's listening and tuning in's specific needs. So let's jump right into some of the benefits of why you should use a law practice management software. So this is a graph kind of detailing the different areas that the majority of practice management softwares cover. These are kind of these are more functionalities. These are more features, not so much necessarily outcomes of how your business will be better because of these tools. But these are kind of where you can understand what areas they cover, because when it comes to technology, there's unfortunately there's a lot of different terms and or areas of running a business. But you can see here kind of the 6 different areas: organizing cases and matters, calendars, task management, client and contact interaction, kind of CRM management, accepting payments, and billing features, simplifying time management, tracking, things like that. So it's really the whole purpose of a lot of these practice management softwares is to kind of bring everything in one area for your law firm, to really make it as efficient as possible. A lot of things like automation, data, forecasting, all those things require a lot of syncing data. So having everything in one place in that regard is pretty powerful. That's really the same concept as a CRM, right? If you're familiar with CRMs or really any other accounting software, things that can track a lot of different data is super important for making decisions, for simplifying things, automation, all that fun stuff. So here's a couple things to consider when you're looking at a practice management software and some of the benefits and things that you want to ultimately improve your business. First is improves client experience. So a lot of these practice management software has things like secure document sharing, a client portal, seamless communication with you and your staff, right? Whether it's through texting or through email, automated booking meetings, right? Where the client, they just want to book time with you, they can go book time on your schedule, right? All these different areas, you may be actually using some of these in different areas and piecemealing it together to accomplish this. These practice management softwares really try to bring it all down into one workflow, and the ones that do it the best have those things, because you're really trying to improve ultimately your client experience. That way you can drive better outcomes for your clients. Everything else to make you more efficient and to reduce risk and to make these things work better, right? Is great, is all great. We'll talk about that in a second. But most of all, one of the biggest benefits I've seen is just simplifying your client experience and making it seamless from interacting with you to working with you to signing on with you, right? And kind of the sales process, but then also to servicing your clients as well. That's a big part of it, where your ongoing client engagement is huge for that. Other things to consider as well includes increases efficiency. So no brainer, right? As you are, these tools ultimately are designed to make you more efficient, especially things like automation, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well, of how to automate and ultimately make your organization do the same amount of work, but with less human resources, right? Where you have a machine or a computer doing tracking and or creating projects, creating follow-ups, interacting with your clients, right? Automating some of that as well. Improves reporting. This is probably one of the coolest parts about CRMs, practice management softwares, any of these types of tools, is the ability to have improved reporting and also accurate forecasts. This next one here as well. The ability to actually have enough data across all the different regions of the operations of your business to be able to actually have predictable sets of numbers where you can predict growth. You can look at areas in your business that need improvement, right? Sometimes we don't even know what our problems are without actually having data to be like, hey, that looks wrong. You know, why are we either losing so much money on one client or making so much money on another? So reporting is huge for that. Forecasting is huge for that. Having those reports, if you don't have robust reporting in place to know what your KPIs for every aspect of your organization, every major aspect of your organization, there's probably areas you're missing out on improvement, and ultimately and making more money, reducing costs, reducing risk, all that fun stuff. Centralized data, kind of in regards to reporting as well. Having all your data in one place, a huge win for even being able to calculate and understand your reporting opportunities. You can't really create a report unless you have all the data, right? So pulling in data from all these different places can be challenging. Having it all in one place is super cool. Increases security. If you are currently right now using a server on premise at your office, or you have, you're paying somebody else to have a server for you, that you need to have your practice management software, your file storage, or any tools you have to have on a server or a workstation, is really costly to maintain, number one. But then also number two, the security of it. Chances are you're going to be much more secure with one of these cloud, especially the cloud and this is kind of what I'm specifically talking about, especially a cloud-based practice management tool than you'll ever have with an on-premise server. Promotes remote first. So especially the cloud-based ones as well, like I mentioned, and even not the cloud-based ones, if you have to have it on a server, right? If you pick one of these tools and it needs to be server-based, 75% of them now and the major brands are all cloud-based now. A couple of the legacy practice management tools are on-premise, meaning you need a server or a workstation to host it. But a lot of them is also, the majority of them are cloud-based and work really well on that. So that really helps being remote, right? If it is already in the cloud, you have a decentralized or distributed workforce, no brainer, right? Or if you have multiple offices and you want to collaborate between all the different locations, no brainer when it comes to being cloud-based. And then also, even if it has to be stored locally, having this brain, right? This is actually really the brain of your organization. And I think whenever we've invested in, ultimately a CRM or some sort of tool to do all these things for us, really practice management and organization management tools, we've been able to work so much better from a remote standpoint, right? Just because we have a brain of our organization. We don't only need to necessarily be in the room to be able to identify all these different areas. We have the machine and ultimately, kind of our company brain, if you lack of a better expression, that's keeping track of everything across the board. Increases professionalism. So I think practice management software is kind of fill in the gaps in regards to your overall brand experience, and kind of goes back to the very first point, which is kind of client experience. So this hopefully should give you a good picture of the overwhelming benefits of a practice management tool. This is only the tip of the iceberg. These are the ones that are most notable to us and we've seen for our clients that have really helped improve. We'll go through, as we go through this presentation, there's gonna be some features that are gonna come up. They're gonna be like, oh wow, never heard of that maybe. So there's other things that kind of in these spheres that can really help improve your organization. The overall efficiency, but then also security, client experience, all that fun stuff. So there's a lot of benefits to these tools, and they're definitely worth looking at and worth reviewing. Awesome. So let's jump right into understanding kind of the pros and cons of cloud versus on-premise. So as you're going through these tools and evaluating which one or maybe you have an on-premise tool right now, or you're cloud-based and you're wondering if you should go to on-premise, we're going to kind of talk about the pros and cons. And as we go through this comparison, it's going to be very apparent that one is, and from our perspective, is more superior to the other. That being said, if you have to have an on-premise tools because of, you have this really specific tool because you're in a unique industry, or you have a researching tool that has to be stored on a server or a desktop, then we can help you with that. Or there's ways to get it to work well. But once again, as we go through this comparison, you'll probably see the pros and cons really far outweigh with the cloud. Here's kind of some of the benefits of cloud versus on-premise when you're evaluating these tools. Things like improved collaboration. If you've ever had an on-premise server or had a server or had applications that had to be on a desktop, you very well know that the challenges of ultimately getting people from multiple locations outside your organization to be able to collaborate on either files or ultimately software that is stored locally. So huge benefit of the cloud is it helps improves that. Once again, the cloud exceeds client expectations, kind of going back to the cloud whole client experience. If you're comparing the two, cloud has just so many more features to be able to interact with your clients in a more professional, secure manner. Trying to have an on-premise server, you are fighting against the inertia of the cloud and ultimately all the benefits of it. And maintaining a server, it's problematic. It's more problematic than the cloud to begin with. So if your server goes down or your anything like that, you're going to be potentially not be able to service your clients, right? So the cloud kind of just enables your ability to even almost kind of service your clients 24/7, right? You can have a client portal. You can have a way for them to interact with you or pay their bills on nights and weekends, or there's all these different features that allows them to interact with you in a superior way and also more automated as well. Boosts efficiency, cloud versus on-premise. Ultimately, when you're looking at tools, it's to kind of some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, ultimately a lot more efficient with your time, more secure. Once again, trying to keep stuff secure locally on a server or on a desktop, much more challenging than trying to keep things secure in the cloud. No more in-house servers, no more IT contracts, extra IT contracts where you need to have somebody managing your servers. VPNs, if everything's in the cloud, this is even, I do want to kind of emphasize, this is even important for law firms that want to move their tools to the cloud. So what I mean by that is, just because you have an on-premise system right now, right? Like, so if you're a law firm that has a server and you need to have it because of some specific tools, you can actually move that to the cloud and move it to a virtual cloud experience. And it's still on a server. And we'll talk about that later. But kind of put that as a side note, especially if you're a law firm that has an on-premise server and you need to continue to have that, there's ways to get that to the cloud so you can start eliminating or start gaining some of these benefits and eliminating some of these problems. For example, a VPN. If you moved your on-premise server to the cloud right now, whether you went completely cloud-based or you just moved your server to the cloud and hosted it there, you wouldn't have to have VPNs. VPNs slow things down. It's an extra cost. There's all sorts of negatives to them. It's a necessary evil. And then also remote desktop is another way to get around that as well, right? If you're doing remote desktop, your remote access to your desktop or server, you can eliminate that as well and speed things up, make things more efficient, all that fun stuff. No complicated updates or patching. If you've ever had a server or workstation, you know how that is, having on-premise equipment, patching, updating, things go down. You have to keep things maintained. You have to buy new equipment, new hardware. If you're looking, we're an IT provider, right? So we manage all of this stuff for our clients, whether it's cloud-based or on-premise. And from a small business standpoint, one of the most expensive, time-consuming aspects of a small business technology infrastructure is a server. So there's really nothing more than that that can be as demanding and or challenging for a small business. So if you can eliminate that, huge benefit for your IT staff. But then also, you don't have to have the hardware cost every 5 years. You have to update them every 4 to 5 years. You have to update them, and the hardware costs and the complicated patching updates, all that fun stuff. Last but not least, no duplicate data entry. So if you're accessing a server or you have multiple files, people are storing things locally, you've probably experienced multiple data entry or the wrong version of a file. Being in the cloud, you really are able to eliminate that, and you're able to restore to previous versions. You're able to see who makes edits on things. There's just all sorts of more oversight and or integration that you can see things and restore things. Some of the benefits of on-premise, you've probably seen some of the negatives, and I've mentioned some of the negatives, but some of the benefits are everything is stored locally, and that can really help for things like great for large files. So if you're downloading large files or storing large files, sometimes a server can be helpful for that, or storing things locally. Or kind of this third one here is required for non-cloud software. So if you have, there's a number of them out there: Smokeball, Time Matters, Tabs 3, QuickBooks Desktop. That's obviously an accounting software. The first three are law practice management softwares. Those three in particular, you have to have having them on a server, or you have to have them on a workstation. And so you'll need some sort of on-premise equipment for that. There's some ways, though, to put that in the cloud. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But generally speaking, you need some sort of on-premise equipment for that. Cool. As we go into looking at comparing different law practice management software, there's key features that your law firm should look out for. And the key features are just a number of areas that we've seen that can really achieve what we talked about earlier, right? What are the benefits, right? Client experience, security, efficiencies, stability, all that fun stuff. So here's kind of some of the key things you should look out for. Number one is activity tracking. So this is a pretty general feature of all CRMs these days. And CRM, if I didn't clarify earlier, is just a tool to track customer record. It's called customer record management or client record management. And it is ultimately a way to manage all of your interactions with your customers and or clients. So one of the big parts of that is activity tracking. So texting, calls, emails, and also maybe meetings, you could include that as well. So tracking all those interactions is super important. For analyzing, for having a track record, number one, that way you can go and review things, but then also for billing, for being able to, like I mentioned, go back and track things. For reporting, and also do a lot of reporting of like, hey, how many meetings did it take to complete this particular case? How many phone calls do we have to make? How many emails? What type of keywords were used in the text messaging or emails? What particular marketing campaigns were affected and effective? And so there's all these different aspects that you're able to track and really gauge performance, right? Back to reporting, CRMs really kind of bring in all the data points from how you're interacting with your clients and then help you create reporting, actionable items on changing things and improving things. One big area of that is activity tracking. So something to look out for. And there's things that affect this. For example, all these three tools, right? Texting, calls, and email. Well, if you're using 3 different providers for that, right? If you're using let's say you're texting your clients right now on your personal device, you're calling them on your personal device, and you're using your work email to interact with them, or maybe you're using your business phone to interact with them. Well, each one of those is 3 different entities. And to be able to track all of that and make sure everything is actually filtering through can be challenging. So when you are picking a practice management tool, make sure you're able to track those 3 things in particular. Meetings, generally speaking, all of them track. So you can do automated meetings and you can track that in your CRM. But the ones that fall through the cracks are these 3 ones. And what we've seen with a lot of law firms is they're not tracking texting effectively, they're not tracking calls effectively, and they're not tracking emails effectively. And so they're missing out on a lot of data. They're missing out on a lot of track records and all sorts of things, and also security too. Having all of your data, for example, if your texting are going through your personal phone, stuff like that, or your calls are going through your personal phone and you're not tracking those interactions, then ultimately you are at risk of information, falling into the wrong hands, a security breach. If you're working on a personal device, right, like a cell phone or an iPad or something like that, and you're doing work-related things on there, huge red flag, right, from a security standpoint. And most of you probably know you shouldn't do that. And so this kind of falls into the security standpoint. It also falls into performance, all that fun stuff. As a side note, if you do have questions in this, please submit them through the Q&A. We will have time towards the end to answer your questions and also the ones that were submitted in advance as well, as a side note as well. The next thing you want to make sure your law practice management software has is a document storage, sharing, and then e-sign. These 3 key features are super important. So it doesn't necessarily need to have this built in, but you at least need to have a robust tool that integrates well with this. So whether it's NetDocuments or whether it's Citrix ShareFile or Microsoft 365 SharePoint or OneDrive, you want to make sure it integrates well with your practice management software. Or a lot of them have these key features built in, right? The top platforms, generally speaking, have all of these key features I'm reviewing built in. They may not be to your liking, or you may have specific needs that fall outside of that. So just make sure you have a provider of some sort that can do these 3 things, do them well. So basically, document storage is all your documents are in the cloud now, right? And everything's stored there. Your clients are interacting with your files in the cloud. Nothing gets shared via email. And this kind of falls into the email side. Only documents are shared in a secure cloud portal. That is the best practice when it comes to file storage and file sharing, is that somebody should have to log in to the cloud to access those files. Look at your bank, especially if it's a national bank. They will probably have the best security in place. And you'll notice they'll never send you a document. They'll never send you any sensitive information via email. because ultimately email is not secure, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But ultimately, yeah, big picture, you should have a secure portal that your clients need to log into, that they can upload and download documents, maybe even collaborate on documents, right? If it's a Word document or Excel document, you can do that in OneDrive and SharePoint, but basically a secure portal. And then, excuse me, one step further, you can actually have e-sign available as well. A lot of the platforms have e-sign as a feature, and a lot of the document storage tools out there have the ability to have an e-sign feature integrated as well. Big picture though, main takeaway here is first, number one, don't share things by email. Make sure there's some sort of secure vault if people are downloading files in your interact, and any sensitive information should never be sent by email. It should be uploaded in some sort of secure vault or portal, which we'll talk about in a second in regards to client portals. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be a portal, but at least needs to be some sort of cloud-based document sharing tool that's cloud-based. It's not going through email, and have some sort of authenticator there. Next thing is, and this is probably one of my favorite topics around law practice management software, is automation. And this is really all around practice management in general, is how can we automate as much as possible what we do? Whether it's creating documents, whether it's follow up with clients, whether it's marketing campaigns, whether it's booking meetings. If we can automate as much as possible, we will save time and ultimately give your team back more time. And one thing we look at, especially as we do IT, if we can reduce your overall, if we can give your team back like 20% more time, that will be an exponential impact on your team, that they can go get new clients, they can grow the business in other areas, you can focus on revenue generating activities. That's how we think about IT, and that's our goal and our focus to help our clients with. And just in automation in general, and ultimately, how can we buy you back more time, is things like workflow, right? And creating processes where, as you have intake forms, to actually managing your clients, to accepting payments, to all these different types of things, ultimately are all automated, and there's steps and processes in place to make sure things don't fall through the cracks. Number one, right? You have peace of mind knowing that the system is taking care of things. And then number two, you can get back more time. And that's ultimately the main driver, and drive better outcomes overall. So these platforms have a ton of different automation tools, and that's something to ask for. Hey, what are your automation capacities? How can you help us build out automated processes? That way we can save more time. And where things are just taken care of automatically without having to have any manual labor. Next feature is texting or equivalent. So this is something that we see a lot in law firms, is that lawyers are texting their clients, or clients just ultimately want to text their lawyers and or attorneys and or the firm in general. And ultimately, we've seen this be pretty problematic for our clients for a couple different reasons, especially if it's on a personal phone. Not being able to track the activity, kind of going back to activity, is super challenging. And then also with device proliferation, if you're using a personal device, it may be backed up to the cloud, it may be backed up to another device, and there's ways that information could then get exposed. So from an overall data security standpoint, data compliance standpoint, texting with a personal device is not recommended. If you were to use a business phone that is maybe in a secure app that needs some sort of a multi-factor authentication to get into it, and it's synchronized with your law practice management platform, that is the right direction to head when it comes to texting or something equivalent. Platforms like Clio have like a built-in instant messaging tool that's in their portal that you can instant message your clients back and forth, which can ultimately eliminate the need to have texting at all, because they're able to interact with you in that secure portal. So that's pretty cool. And other platforms have like a business texting integrated there. Something to look for though, move away from, big takeaway here, move away from texting with personal devices, even business cell phones. It's problematic. It's, as it stands right now, iMessage or even Android is not designed to be able to track that information, to get it to your CRM, your law practice management software. So having your texting integrated in your law practice management software is crucial, or having some sort of equivalent, right? Or just don't text your clients. That's all the other option too. Email, phone calls. Some people do Slack or Microsoft Teams, right? And they focus on those platforms. Those are much more secure, much more, your IT department can have oversight with those things and ultimately make sure things are secure and you're protecting your client and yourself as well. Client portal access. This is also a super cool feature that make sure you ask and make sure you're looking for when you're doing a demo of these platforms. Client portal is really a place where your clients can know and interact with you in a secure way, right? Download, upload documents, make payments, pay their bills, see invoices, maybe even instant message you, like I mentioned earlier. Having a central portal that's branded to you that your clients go to, super cool feature. Some of the platforms have it, some of them don't. It's probably 50-50 from what I've seen. So some of them don't have it, but really cool feature. Definitely recommend that. Case tracking and project and task management in general. Skipped ahead there. Project task management in general. We see a lot of clients that are not really utilizing project management or task management in general. If you're in a professional service organization, especially if you're a law firm, right, you most likely have multi-step, sometimes super complex over long periods of time processes that you work with your clients or that you have internally. So case tracking, project management, task management in general is something that is always a challenge for organizations, and is something these law practice management softwares can add a ton of value in. Integrations in general. So a lot of these platforms have tons of different integrations, things like integrating with payment processors or calendar providers or other file storage providers. One of the main ones you should look for is your email, whether you use Google Gmail or whether you use Microsoft 365 like Outlook and the 365 ecosystem, or if you use something else, most likely you're using one of the first two. Make sure it integrates well with the platform. Most law firms we work with use Microsoft 365, and we definitely recommend that direction, and we help our clients use Microsoft 365. Make sure it's integrated with whatever the platform is and it integrates well. That way you can track emails. That's one big part of it. Track your calendar and make sure that's integrated for automatic calendar bookings and things like that. But there's also a host of other integrations. Like everything, no platform is the end all be all, and everything is going to have limitations to some extent. Some platforms do better than others. Some platforms have just more features than others, but ultimately integrations are just crucial in general. So when you're looking at software, most likely you're going to need a handful of integrations to make sure all of your different pieces of your infrastructure are integrated. And so working through what tools do you use now to make sure those integrated? Do you use QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online? Or do you use some other accounting tools to manage your billing? Do you want billing to be integrated with your law practice management software, or do you have to use some sort of accounting tool? Do you use Google products? Do you use Microsoft products? What sort of phone system do you use? Texting, some of those things I talked about earlier. So looking at all your different integrations, your website, right? Making sure that's integrated, your marketing tools, your campaigns, all that fun stuff. If you can integrate as much as possible, huge win to get as much data in there. And really look at your tech stack, write out your tech stack. If we were to help you right now pick out a LPM or a law practice management software, we want to write out your tech stack as of right now. Maybe look at where your tech stack is going to go, right? But write it out right now and see areas of improvement. But then also look at how would that integrate with one of these platforms. Another key feature is payments. Payments is a way where you can accept online payments through these platforms, especially the cloud-based versions do this really well. These payments processors allow you to accept credit cards, ACH, all that fun stuff. So make sure that's integrated with your platform. If there's a specific one you really want to use, then make sure it integrates. A lot of these platforms have it built in, so you can just use whatever their payment processors are. Some of them, their fees vary. So depending on, that's probably something you should evaluate as you're evaluating the cost of the different platforms, is evaluating the payment processing as well, especially if you want to integrate it, which from our standpoint, it would make sense to, if it's native to whatever the platform is, meaning it's built in, right? It's not some third-party integration. we would recommend going that direction over having an integration. So make sure you check out their fees, make sure, depending on your revenue and your overall, add that to the cost of the platforms, and make sure that works with your overall billing and costs that you're currently paying for billing, and then also is it competitive compared to the different platforms. As far as accounting tools go, this is another thing too. Some of these platforms have accounting built in where you can manage more of your kind of the QuickBooks side of accounting when it's, reconciliations, your banking, stuff like that, expenses, and more the financials of the business. Almost all of these platforms have some sort of time management, time billing built in where you can manage your billing, bill your clients. But probably 95% of them stop at, you can bill your clients, you can accept payments, you can even get some financial reports, but ultimately managing your overall financials usually needs to be exported to a solution like QuickBooks or another accounting tool. So some of them have it built in. There's really only a few that I've seen have it built in. Tabs 3 is one of them that we've seen that it's built in. That one's an on-premise law practice management tool. So, but most of them don't have it built in. Most of them just do those things I mentioned. Like you can track how much time you're spending on each client, bill them for that, and then of course the client can pay for the bill. So yeah, kind of big picture. These are the things, once again, to take note of. These are all the different key features you should look for when you are ultimately looking for a practice management tool. Let's look into some comparisons of the top tools. So here is a graph by Captura, and really this is all the different providers out there. So it is a rather busy field when it comes to different offerings from different cloud providers and even just law practice management providers in general. So as you're looking at this platform, you're looking at your top performers up in the top right quadrant. You're looking at emergent favorites in the bottom right. On the left side is established players and noteworthy products. And really, top rated and kind of just these three different spheres. I'm going to talk about a couple of them here. And the couple of them are really the ones over in kind of the top performer area. So there is some tools out here. There's some, which we'll talk about in a second, that are kind of some diamonds in the rough, if you would. But a lot of these are legacy tools that are down here on the bottom. Really the most popular ones are really the ones that are the biggest players in the game right now. For example, Clio. Top right, they're probably one of the largest purely cloud-based practice management tools for law firms out there. There's the other ones that are not cloud-based, some of the on-premise ones like Time Matters and things like that are more legacy. Those are pretty large organizations still, but the ones that are purely cloud-based are really Clio and MyCase. MyCase is quite a bit smaller than Clio. Clio, like I mentioned, is probably the largest out of all the top performers. Clio is kind of the next one down, quite a bit smaller, but still a great platform from what we've seen. And then notably as well, which we'll talk about in a second, would be Smokeball, and also, would be the other one as well. Smokeball is something that we've seen be pretty promising. That was an on-premise platform. So for cloud-based, if you're looking at purely cloud-based, which honestly, for 95% of the clients out there, cloud-based is the option, unless there's something really particular that you're trying to accomplish that you can't get with the tool. So we would look at ultimately Clio and MyCase. Those are the two cloud-based tools that we think you should really compare and evaluate heavily. There's other ones too that are great, that are decent, but the ones that are top performers that we think are going to be the most stable for the foreseeable future, that have a lot of these key features we talked about, if not all of them, would be Clio and MyCase and Smokeball. Smokeball is a PC only on-premise platform. So if you're PC only and especially if you're a small firm, maybe, then it could be good. Or if you are, there's some ways to host it in the cloud, which we'll talk about in a second. But ultimately, it's really ideal for PCs, not Macs, and not people that are interested in working in the cloud. If you're interested in working in the cloud, Clio in my case. We'll give you, if you want to look at this presentation, we'll give you the links and things like that so you can go read all the different. But after our research, after analyzing our clients that have used these tools, we've really seen that Clio in my case are not only the most popular, but they also are some of the highest client satisfaction overall. And kind of looking in comparing the two main cloud providers, like I mentioned, Clio in my case, the two main most popular ones here. And looking at them here is really looking at kind of the different areas. On the left side is Clio, on the right side is my case. And they're pretty neck and neck as you're looking at kind of ease of use, requirements. Clio is a little superior when it comes to support, ease of doing business, product direction. Whereas my case is a little easier for setup and ease of admin, and also ease of use overall. So those are, I think, from an outside standpoint, Clio is I think my case is, it seems from our experience, our research, our client interaction, my case is really does a phenomenal job of making a very simple, straightforward platform. Really ideal for small organizations. If you get larger, Clio just has a little more ultimately interactions. It's a larger company that can really do a little bit more, but it's also a little more expensive. So as you get into Clio and add on all the different features, it gets a little bit more expensive. So one way to look at it is, if you're a small organization and you're looking for a cloud-based tool, my case would be the direction I would go. If you're under 5 employees, maybe even under 10 employees, my case would be a great option. If you're over 10 employees, then ultimately we could see Clio being the direction, just because it starts getting into more, it just has more features. It's more expensive, but it gives you more features, especially as you get into a larger organization, and ultimately it heads in that direction. So that's kind of the big comparison between Clio and my case. They're both phenomenal platforms. Definitely would demo both of these companies if you're looking for a cloud-based solution. And then if you're looking, also Smokeball as well, if you're a PC user. Looking at on-premise software in the cloud. So if you're trying to use Smokeball in the cloud, it appears you can actually use Smokeball in the cloud and other tools like Tabs 3, Time Matters, things like that, can all be cloud hosted. There's a couple different ways you can host things in the cloud. First, there's tools like Microsoft 365 Cloud PC, where you can actually it gets a little technical here, and I don't get too much in the weeds, but you can have the ability to have a virtual PC in the cloud that has your software installed on it, that your client, then you can then just basically access remotely, completely secure in the cloud. Virtual desktop is a similar, Azure Virtual Desktop is a similar feature. Happy to talk about that. Those are two different ways you can put a on-premise tool in the cloud. That goes for also like QuickBooks Desktop. That goes for any other tools that you need to have that you want to put in the cloud that you have on-premise right now. There's a chance you probably can put it in the cloud. That being said, we would definitely push towards cloud-based. And ultimately, if there's no specific reasons why you need to be cloud-based, then ultimately, if there's not a specific reason to be cloud-based, we would recommend, not a specific reason not to be cloud-based, we would recommend being cloud-based. Awesome. So moving on to kind of our next area here. And as we're wrapping up, we've got some questions. Thanks so much for submitting questions. Please submit them. We'll review them in just a second. But I want to let you know, if you want additional help in looking for a platform, you can reach out to us. We can help you build a criteria under these key features to see which platform is best for you. We help our clients work with all of these, with at least the top 5 or 6 platforms. and notably Clio, and we have clients that use Clio and some of the other platforms we've talked about today. So we can help you review them. Then we can help you pick the top 2 to then go research and do demos. You should then do demos of those products. We are happy to help you answer any questions from a technical standpoint, and then you can then go implement, pick the right one, and then go implement it. So yeah, if you know you're ready to help, that you want help finding the right LPM, please, you can go book a time with us, nwtx.com/let's talk, and we can book a time with us where we can then walk you through your specific organization, your specific law firm's needs, build a criteria out of it, recommend a few providers for you, you go demo them and get a solution in place. Or if you have technical questions around, hey, I'm using this tool and not quite sure if I can move it over, I'm happy to help you address that as well. So from a Q&A standpoint, love to get into, as we have a few more questions, love to get into the Q&A here. It looks like first question is here. Speaking of Office 365, thoughts on Matters 365, which is built on and based on the Office 365 ecosystem. I'm unsure of Matters 365, so I would ultimately happy to review that with you, and maybe even get one of our engineers. Reach out to us, book a time with us. We can definitely look at that for you. I don't personally have had any interaction with Matters 365. Sherry asks, we have clients who pay with check, ACH, credit card, PayPal. Which of these platforms offer all of these options? We also need a platform that integrates with QuickBooks, as our accountant uses that for reconciliation. We also need the ability to set up payment plans within the billing system for our current billing software. This is mostly chunky manual process. We're actively looking for a new law firm management tool. We have 2 meetings this week with different vendors. I would look at Clio in my case, Sherry. I believe most of those, if not all of those payment processors can be used through both of those platforms, and they would be a great option for that. Jonah asks, why specifically is Clio better for my case for larger or growing organizations? I think it just has more features, honestly, and it's just a larger organization, so integrations are better. That's probably the biggest one. Integrations are better. So as your organization grows, you're probably going to add more tools for specific needs, or it's going to make more sense that everything is integrated. Kind of like we talked about earlier, right? If you can integrate every aspect of your business workflow and your business processes, you get better data, you get more reporting, you're more efficient, all that fun stuff. Clio has better integrations from what we've seen. Sherry asks, why do you charge to help law firms navigate the platforms? What do you charge? Excuse me. What do you charge to help navigate the platform? So we don't charge anything. We work with law firms to manage their overall IT. So we're happy to answer questions, and that's part of our process, is to help thing that relates to IT, whether it's your phone system, whether it's your printers, your workstations, your law practice management software, cybersecurity and compliance. We do all of that. So ultimately, there is law practice management software is a really important part of that. So we help our clients do that. Anonymous also, thanks for the link for the Matters 365. I actually always learn a lot through Q&A in webinars because people ask such great questions. So thanks for the great questions. And thank you for the insight, because we'll definitely research that and maybe can include that in a future webinar. Awesome. So David asked, my firm uses Clio, but we have heard there are better companies out there not referenced. What is the best software to actually upload the case documents evidence directly into the software? Great question. As far as document management, David, happy to talk through specifically what your needs are. There's a lot of different variables. I know Clio document, some people aren't super happy with Clio's document storage and they use an outside platform. So that we've seen people do that, net documents. We've seen people do that actually in particular with net documents. So that may be a good direction where, hey, you can still use Clio. Once again, David, kind of what I talked about earlier, no platform is going to be perfect in every area, but you want to have as many things native as possible. And then, like I mentioned, you want a platform that can integrate super well. I'm probably going to butcher the name, Delinda says we are Lawbase currently. Lawbase is the software and is 100% customized. When we upgraded, it was taking some time to get used to the upgrades. We use share file for uploading documents. Cool. That sounds great. It sounds like you have a good process there of Lawbase is answering all your needs. I would say if there's something missing in Lawbase, or if there's any of these key features that we talked about that you're missing, if you're not, great, stick with them. And it looks like you're using a third party to do your file storage, which is Citrix share file, which is a great storage. And Josh asks, for billing, we have a lot of custom templates and things. Okay, yeah. So I would say for clients, yeah, custom things for clients. For billing, there is different options there depending on the platform. Depends on how much customization you need. Like I mentioned, there's other tools for billing like Tabs3, which is an on-premise platform that does a lot of advanced billing. And depending on the platform, that may be something you want to look into, right? Payments and accounting, that should be a major feature that you should compare when you're looking at these different platforms. Nick asks, cloud-based software is completely dependent on ISP speed. So ISP is internet service provider. Nick, that is a great question. And yeah, like we talked about earlier, having stuff stored locally, if you are downloading and uploading files, large files, or you're working on it, most law firms we work with are not. With the exception of maybe medical records, we see like personal injury attorneys and things like that deal with a lot of medical records. So first, those are sometimes large files. And but that being said, the benefits of storing in the cloud far outweigh. I would say, Nick, that yes, it is dependent upon ISP speeds. So the first question I'd ask is, how big are the files? If the files are normal size, then I wouldn't worry about it. Most internet speeds nowadays is, unless you're in a really rural area, then you're probably going to have fast enough speeds to upload and download things, and there's no issues there. If you are in a rural area and you are dealing with big files, then maybe an on-premise system makes sense. That being said, even rural companies are not just working in rural areas. They're working with people all around the country or all around the world. So rural companies, even if they are rural, the benefits of the cloud, collaboration of the cloud, the security of the cloud, the ability to work remotely, or the ability for people to work in different areas remotely is huge. If you're a company that is a rural law firm and you're only in a small town, you only work in a small town, you don't work with anybody outside of that small town, you work in person, you don't interact with your clients very often online, then an on-premise system could make sense. But even then, it's still super expensive to have on-premise systems. So yeah, I'm trying to justify it. I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here, but really the cloud-based there's just so many benefits to it. And the internet speed is a problem, but it's very rare. And it's really only for large files, or like I mentioned, a very rural, super local law firm, not somebody that is working in the cloud at all, or even interacting with their clients at all. Hannah asked, we are really interested in a management system that is dynamic and effective at quantifying our data to share with our stakeholders. Nonprofit public defendant's office here. Thanks, Hannah, for the question. And great question. And I love the direction you're headed. That is why it's so crucial to have as much data in one area as possible. If your tools aren't talking with one another, if you're not bringing in all of your data into one area, you can't future forecast. You can't understand where your organization, you can't see the weak spots in your organization. And it's a guessing game ultimately, or there's a ton of manual work, right? You have to use Excel spreadsheets and things like that to get the numbers you need. So as much as you can automate that and just bring everything in is super huge. Another question, you really need a software that can give you the reports and the ability to pull data. Yep, awesome. Into a data warehouse where you can then use the reports you need. Yep, completely agree. Josh also asks, our current program is PC Law. It's great for accounting side, but attorneys hate it because it's a suck on such an old program, and it fails more than it should. We have 14 billers, and our clients have a lot of custom requests for their invoices. A cloud-based solution would be best. Awesome question, Josh. Yep, we've had clients that use PC Law, and a lot of people are moving away from PC Law just because it is more of a legacy platform. They haven't evolved as fast as a lot of these cloud providers have. So there's a lot of reasons to look at those. We use Clio Suite, including Grow. Nice. We're currently looking for a new intake platform that will integrate with Manage. What are some of the intake platforms you know of? We are 20 employees and growing. I'm not an intake specialist in regards to that. I know Clio has some features in that. If it's not sufficient enough, I would just look at, maybe your specific industry, narrow it down by that, and that would help us narrow down your search based upon which documents you need, stuff like that. I would look at a lot of these platforms have all the documents in place, right? So there's tons of documents that you can just autofill with your customers' data in the fields. Super cool features there. So I would look like something for that for your specific industry. Unsure of your industry, so that would where I would look as well. Zane asked, PC Law has not been very good for about 7 years. Customer service has gone. Thanks for the feedback, Zane. And yes, I haven't heard that specifically as far as the customer service being so bad, but I've heard of it. Yeah, just having issues and not being stable. So we're seeing a huge migration away from PC Law, and happy to help discuss what platform you should move to. Awesome. We're getting a ton of questions. Wow. And we have about 5 minutes left. So if you have any more questions, please add them. Thank you so much for asking such a great question. This is a great value for all the audience, right? Everyone else, because you're bringing up areas that probably other people have questions. So keep them coming. Exactly. We've been looking at a Filevine, which is a tool. I just want to be sure that whichever system we select is capable of serving our attorneys and is trackable. Hannah, great point. Yep, I would work with whatever practice management tool platform and see what their integration is with Filevine. And also ask Filevine, hey, what platforms work best with Filevine? If you really set on that for a specific reason, then that's great. I do want to make a point here that there's so many options out there. It can be overwhelming. The key thing you should look at is first, look at this presentation of all the different areas of the key areas we've talked about when it comes to reporting, client experience, billing, document storage and sharing. These should be your criteria. Which software you use? There's a lot of great ones out there. So the ones we've talked about are great solutions, but there's also other great ones too. So I'm happy to talk through those different comparisons. But if you find where you're like, hey, I actually like this one tool for this specific reason, especially industry-specific tools, then that's great. Just make sure they integrate with the other tools you want to use well, and you can get all these key features. Then you'll be off to the races, and yeah, you'll do great. Rolldocs is great for document management. Awesome. Thanks for recommending that. Zane we're moving away from it next year. Sounds like they're moving away from PC Law. What is your thoughts on Centerbase? Zane, I have not used Centerbase personally, but reach out to us and definitely can talk about that. Samantha asked, Practice Panther with my case. Practice Panther is another one, probably the top 5 we recommend. There's a couple other ones. Practice Panther, Rocket, Matters is another platform as well. They're all great. Brad asked the same question. Did you evaluate Practice Panther? And if so, why was it excluded as the cloud-based option? So Brad, great question. And I'll kind of answer Samantha and Brad's question together. Ultimately, we found that from a feature standpoint, from a popularity standpoint, from a customer satisfaction standpoint, we wanted to narrow it down for you. So Practice Panther, there may be some great reasons to move to them, but we didn't see any reasons to move over them over my case or Clio. And Clio, my case, are just stronger offerings, we think, overall. Bigger companies, more established, more popular, have all the features we've talked about. Practice Panther has, I think, the majority of the features we've talked about, but is not, wasn't those other things like I mentioned. It is a great option, though, so compare it. Vicky, does anyone have experience with Leap? Actually, we do have a client that uses Leap, and they seem to like it. It's not actually that well known. But I have had somebody experience it and they seem to like it. It's not super popular. It's a pretty small company. So I would have hesitations just for its viability. A lot of these companies get started and then they get sold and they get changed. I would push towards a larger company. Leap seems to be a smaller company. Seems like they're doing good work though. And depending on your needs, some of these smaller companies are more affordable too. So that's also an option too if you're a super small company or if you're just getting started. Brad asks, which of the options has the most effective time tracking? Auto tracking, reminders. I would say actually the best I've seen is the third option, which is Smokeball. Funniest name, it's an Australian company. but they seem to have the best tracking when it comes to time tracking. It's PC only tool, so there's some downsides there if you're a Mac user. There may be some ways to put it in the cloud if you are a Mac user and use it from there that make it a little more complicated than it should be. But if you're a PC user, Smokeball, that seems super popular product, and its tracking it doesn't seem like anything. If you're looking for like, hey, I want the best tracking out there, and you are a PC user, Smokeball may be the option for you. Vicky, what does anyone else have experience with Leap? Yep. I'll hopefully answer that earlier. Dan asks, Lawbase does intake and used to integrate with Clio. Not sure about now. Cool. Thanks, Dan. See, look at that. We're having like a community collaboration here. Yeah, so Lawbase may be a great integration. And yeah, I thought Clio does intake from what I saw, and it does that. But maybe Lawbase has a little more robust intake and gives more documents and stuff like that. Cheyenne says, looking at Leap. Looks like somebody else looking at Leap as well. Looks like we're right on the top of the hour. I'm going to keep asking these questions. We're almost there, though. I want to see if we can answer all these questions. Damien asks, do you have a worksheet checklist folks can use to better evaluate their needs and fits? We'll send out this presentation afterwards. So you'll have a recording of the presentation and also the whole checklist that we've kind of go through. So those are the things I would look for. And then if you want more help, please reach out to us. We help law firms help, interact, all this fun stuff. Joel asks, let's talk to integrations. What do you see most flexibility in playing nice with major platforms as a service or SaaS providers? Microsoft 365 and Salesforce. I know they're in-app management tools like Law Toolbox, Teams, Salesforce, but about standalone packages. I would look at Clio for the most integrations. Bridget asks, any feedback on Zola Suite or Lifty? I have not used either of those. And those don't seem to be very popular, or just not as popular. Yep, awesome. I think I got all the questions. So cool. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Super fun interacting with everyone and all the great questions. If you have more questions, please reach out to us. hello@nwtext.com. You can also reach out to us. I'll put it in the chat if you want to schedule a one-on-one meeting with us just to talk about your technology in general. Like I mentioned, we help law firms manage their overall technology, cybersecurity risk, compliance, phone systems, you name it. If it plugs into the wall or has an IP address, we want to help your law firm make sure it's secure, maintained, and you're using the best tech possible to help you grow, serve your clients, and have more peace of mind. So thanks everyone for joining us. We will send out a recording and the presentation deck afterwards. And take care. Once again, thanks everyone again for spending time with us, and we'll see you in the next webinar.